Folks, welcome into another edition of SportsBookReview.com's Roundtable Series videos. We just wrapped up the NFL Draft. Now it's time to get into the numbers, see if we can find some value. Going to bring in my esteemed panel here, Flash Watson, Ian Cameron, and Teddy Savransky. Betting value, Flash, after the draft. Now, we see some of the markets settle in because you get that instant reaction. Who had a good draft? Who had a bad draft? I really need to bet this team. I think they're headed for a big season. As we take a look at the odds to win the division, the conference, and the Super Bowl, some teams stick out. Flash, I know you were high all season on picking the New Orleans Saints. Did anything change in that? And give me some of maybe your philosophies of betting after the draft here, Flash.
Okay, well, first of all, I do take the value that I perceive to be value prior to the draft. And then, obviously, I have a look, and I look at overreactions. And I think there's an overreaction on the Bucs. So then I'm going to go in with the Saints again. And I have gone in with the Saints again. And the big one, the big turnaround in my mind for value is the Minnesota Vikings. They're plus 180. Now, draft, massive tick. Opposition, big crosses on the Packers and the Bears, concretes me up. I also then think to myself, there's probably only 3 or 4 teams in the NFC. So then I think that the Vikings, they're live at around 16-1 for the NFC. I'm not having these talked about sides. I think there's a couple of overreactions, but the Minnesota Vikings at plus 180 and the Saints now, I took them at minus 140, minus 110, and there I'm getting plus 100, Donnie.
Yeah, when we take a look here, Ian, bringing you in, because after the draft, again, like the draft classes that come in aren't going to be a monster impact in helping you get over the hump and possibly winning a Super Bowl, but it's always nice to take a look and say, boy, this team is really on it. They're adding impact players that we hope will get us over the hump, because when you take a look at teams, even in the NFC West, the 49ers, Ian said, at minus 125, the Seahawks a distant second at plus 325. The perception is some of these teams did really good. Some of these teams didn't help themselves, but after the draft, anything eye-opening for you? Say, you know what? I think there might be value at this point on one of these teams to bet maybe to win the division or even the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm looking mostly, Donnie, at divisional futures, and there's 3 right now that have stood out to me. The Buffalo Bills in the AFC East, they're taking money, and I agree with that. New England Patriots, to me, maybe Bill Belichick will never admit it, but this looked to me like I don't give a damn about next season type of draft from them. They're drafting, kickers before the Marshall kicker, when the Georgia kicker, the Blankenship was still out there. They're drafting FCS players. I mean, this didn't look like a team that was just looking to really load up for this year. They're looking long-term future, and I think the Buffalo Bills, in terms of talent, in terms of the defensive side of the ball, New England lost a lot last year. Buffalo's better than them on that side, and I think Buffalo will win that division. The NFC North, Minnesota. At BetOnline, they're still the underdog to Green Bay. Green Bay plus 140, Minnesota plus 180 to win the NFC North at BetOnline. I think Minnesota wins that division. As we mentioned, they drafted great. Green Bay did not have a good draft. I think they're the ascending team in that division. They've got a chance to win that division at plus 180 is one I'm very interested in. And a long shot in the NFC West. Look, San Francisco is going to be tough to beat, but it's very, very difficult, we know, for the Super Bowl loser the next season. That's going to be the albatross around the neck of the 49ers. Seattle's got questions. The Rams have questions. Why not a small little stab on Arizona at plus 700 to win the NFC West? Kyler Murray, a quarterback that I think makes a big jump from year 1 to year 2. The offense should be really, really good. DeAndre Hopkins, the offensive line should be improved. And the defense struggled last year, but you draft Isaiah Simmons. You should have some pieces to make that defense a little bit better this upcoming season. I think Arizona's your flyer at plus 700 to maybe shock everybody in the NFC West.
Teddy, looking at some offshore options here, it's kind of crazy because, again, public perception drives a lot of these prices here, changes to the betting market after the draft. When we're just looking at the NFC itself, people can't get enough of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You're looking at a 3-way tie between the Saints, 49ers, and Buccaneers at 6-1 to win the NFC Championship, and also some small odds changes out of the NFC East. We're now also seeing the Cowboys at 10-1 and the Eagles 11-1 to win the NFC. So a lot of changes just based off the draft and what we've seen already in the marketplace after the Super Bowl.
Absolutely, and that's an excellent point, Donnie, because I'm going to talk about a handful of teams. The numbers are moving right now after the draft. And the key is, from this moment until basically the start of the preseason, when players start getting hurt, once the odds start moving in one direction, there's no buyback. There's no stop price. So the line moves that we've seen in the 48 hours since the end of the draft, that's the way the lines are likely to continue to move all summer long. So what have we seen? I mean, we've seen the Bills money rolling in. Ian talked about that. We've seen the Cowboys money rolling in. The markets like the Ravens and the Niners even more. Arizona's on the way up. And the number one team is the team you just talked about, Tampa Bay, who has taken more over money, more odds to win the division, more odds to win the Super Bowl than anybody in the NFL. On the downside, the Packers have been bet down already. The Eagles have been bet down already. The Falcons have been bet down already off the draft. So I would expect what we've seen over the last 2 days is what we're going to see over the next 2 months. So any of these teams where the lines have already started to move, I'd bet sooner rather than later if you're betting in the same direction as the market. If you're looking to go the other way, take your time because the lines are going to, there's no urgency whatsoever if you want to fade some of these initial line moves like the money coming in on Dallas. I'm like, I want to fade Dallas. I don't want Dallas. But that's not a bet I'm making today. That's a bet I'm going to wait until August to get involved with because right now the money's coming on Dallas and everyone loves these Cowboys. So no urgency with a bet like that.
Flash, let's add another layer to this because obviously there's different betting strategies throughout the offseason, post-Super Bowl, free agency, and now we're in the post-draft spot. Let's also remember May 9th, we're anticipating getting the actual schedule coming out for the NFL, which can give you 3 straight road games, can give you 3 straight divisional games. Maybe you're matching up on teams that are coming off buys more than another team, so it adds that extra layer. And also, let's not forget the back end of free agency and heading right into training camp. Some of these odds are certainly due to change. Talk about maybe a betting strategy for yourself, Flash, where you say, hey, you know what? I really like this team, but if we're taking a look at maybe the Dallas Cowboys, as Teddy says, one of those hot teams that people are looking to put money on, or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that maybe you sit back and say, you know what? I'm going to wait on some of these numbers.
Yeah, I'll move in again, and the big thing that I look for, Donnie, is the fixtures in December. The matchups. Are they going to get a bye? I like to have like a nice little bit of a run. Also, I look at my roster and hope that I try and get my crystal ball out. I see where I should be the first 2 weeks of December. And will I be able to rest players? Will I be able to bring them out? Because I've already got it sewn up. So for me, it's all about December, getting ready for the playoffs and hoping that the job's done.
No, you're exactly correct, Flash. Ian, I'm going to bring you into this conversation, taking a look at some of these betting philosophies, because you can apply these a lot to all sports. Baseball, the changing of the times, the hockey league, as well as the NBA, post, free agency. These lines move a lot all throughout the summer, and sometimes it's advantageous to jump in early or sit back because, as we know, even if you do like a team, you want to get that team at the best price possible, not just jump in and say, I don't care if it goes to 3 or 4 to 1. I like them where they sit now because it's important getting overall value. Talk about some of those betting strategies that you use specifically in the NFL, saying, all right, now we're in that post-draft malaise. Let's see what happens in free agency and see if you can get a better price or even some of those betting angles that you like.
Well, in our real-life world situation right now, we've got Canada and the United States about to reopen the economy by state and by province, and that's kind of like my NFL futures betting, Donnie. It really is. It's phase betting. I'm going to be looking at NFL futures after free agency, which teams, really improved their team via the free agent market. And if I see teams that I think really did improve themselves to the point where they can contend next year, I'll get involved in back teams from a future standpoint after free agency. Then after the draft, which just completed, I'll go back and look which teams, improved themselves after the draft. Do I think they became a big-time improved football team to the point where they can contend following their draft performance? Then I'll bet teams in that scenario. After the schedule, and to me, the schedule is one of the most important factors in terms of these futures because it's not just about who you play, it's about when you play them, and that matters just as much, if not more. So you have the schedule to analyze with these teams. And if I find, wow, this team's done well in free agency, well in the draft, and their schedule is favorable, then I'll take a look at some teams in that regard and maybe look at them from a future standpoint. And the last phase, the fourth and final one, is after preseason training camp. You see how the starters look on the field. You see what kind of the injuries maybe befall some of these teams. And then I make final decisions in terms of the futures following training camp and preseason. So it's really a 4-phase philosophy that I use when it comes to NFL futures.
Teddy, betting with confidence is one of those terms that we hear a lot when making our, market moves here, because nobody wants to get left holding the bag. And if you just take a look at a simple move, the Eagles -7 this weekend. Now they're only -3. Nobody wants to get held with the -7. Talk about betting with confidence throughout the offseason, even though we're not quite done free agency. And it's a little bit of turmoil when free agency is actually going to end, and certainly when training camps are going to pick up. But certainly post-NFL draft, we did talk about how much these lines are moving. Give us maybe some intel on what you look for heading through the summer of maybe making the right rational moves here.
Sure. And this is something, again, we do these roundtables for SBR. I can absolutely promote SBR right here. The SBR Live Odds page is something you have to have. Okay. It's something that has to be, and it's free, but when you have that up all day, you get a sense of where lines are moving. And the key right now, there are bets to be made today for NFL futures, even though the schedule is not out yet. And those bets to be made today are outlier numbers. You're seeing dramatic variance right now. And this is one of the few times of the year, right after the draft, for a few days, where one book's going to have a team lined at 8.5 wins, another team's going to have them at 7.5 wins. You're seeing dramatic disparities. And the markets will close those out in relatively short order. But when you're seeing a team lined at 7.5 wins over here and 8.5 wins over there, you can bet them over 7.5, or you can bet them under 8.5. You can make your choice of which one of the two you like. And particularly when you have the opportunity to look at multiple sports books and shop around, say, this is where the market is right now. This is an outlier number. That's not going to be there in a week. Those are bets to make today. However, the broader bets, they're saying, all right, I'm going to pepper the board with wagers. That's not going to come until after we have the nuance of that schedule, because Ian's absolutely right. And there's other nuance we haven't even talked about. When you face two playoff teams in week 16 and week 17 that could be resting starters, you want to note that. You want to know how many teams are coming in off a short week, how many times you have divisional sandwiches. I mean, the difference between the nuance of the schedule can legitimately, we know the 16 teams, every team's playing already, but how they're laid out can make a full win's worth of difference on any win total. So all I'm trying to bet right now is outlier numbers. 2 weeks from now, when we have the schedule out, that's when you pepper the board, because you know really what teams you're dealing with 100%.
Peppering the board. What a key anecdote here that we take a look at. I do want to thank Flash Watson, Ian Cameron, and Teddy Sferansky for joining us today on SportsbookReview.com's Roundtable Series video focused on betting value in the NFL Draft. For everything betting throughout the summer, getting you ready for the football season in September. It all goes down right here at SportsbookReview.com.